Today, we are launching our second ratings with Oxford University Fairwork Foundation, under which we explore the working conditions in the platform or gig economy. ये जो प्लेटफॉर्म जो गिग इकोनॉमी है, ये ऐसा नहीं कि हमारे यहाँ पे हमेशा से इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर या कैजुअल वर्क फोर्स ये सारे या होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स ये हमेशा से रहेगा. हुआ क्या कि 2015 के बाद से इसको टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ लिंक कर दिया गया. पहले अगर कोई आपको एंगेज करता था किसी वर्क के लिए तो चलो वो हफ्ते के लिए एंगेज किया, महीने के लिए एंगेज किया. With technology, it became possible that I and you can be engaged for maybe a minute, maybe an hour, or maybe a day, or maybe I'm working. अगर मैं कोई डोमेस्टिक वर्कर हूँ तो शायद मैं आधे घंटे के लिए घर में काम करूँ, उसके बाद मेरी ऐप पे शो हो जाए, अच्छा जी यहाँ से 6 किलोमीटर दूर एक और काम है कि आप कर सकते हैं, यू विल बी पेड 300 रुपीज़ एडवांस. फिर वहाँ पे चला जाऊँ, फिर उसके बाद किसी और जगह पे चला जाऊँ. तो इनफॉर्मल वर्क या कैजुअल वर्क ये सारे तो हमेशा से ही मौजूद थे. फ़र्क ये पड़ा कि विद टेक्नोलॉजी नाउ वर्कर्स आर प्रोवाइडिंग देयर सर्विसेज थ्रू एन ऐप, थ्रू योर फोन. एक तरह से ये अच्छा भी हुआ कि people are able to earn some livelihood on a daily basis. They are not dependent on some गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल जो कि मैं अगर रेडी लगा के खड़ा हूँ तो वो मुझे आएंगे, हाँ जी आपने किससे इजाज़त पूछी, आपने मुझे को पैसे देने हैं कि नहीं देने. इसका फ़ायदा ये है कि जी यस फंडामेंटल डिफरेंस इज दैट इट नीड्स एन इन्वेस्टमेंट इन अ व्हीकल, whether a car or a bike. If you have it, then you can start working. जो कि जिसके लिए बहुत अच्छी टर्म इन कंपनीज ने यूज़ करना शुरू की कि यू कैन वर्क एज यू ओपन अ टैप. जैसे आप टैप खोलते हैं उसमें पानी आ जाता है, ऐसे ही आप गिग इकोनॉमी के साथ वर्क हासिल कर सकते हैं. बिकॉज एज सून एज यू ओपन योर ऐप the rides start appearing to you. No, obviously it depends on you कि आपको वो अगर suitable लगती है तभी आप उनको accept करते हैं. या I mean if you are in food delivery, similarly you are getting the orders are being shown to you. तो एक तरह से ये अच्छा भी हुआ. लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम हमारा जो फोकस है आज की रिपोर्ट का वो आपके सामने ये लाना है कि वेदर दिस वर्क इज डिसेंट, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली जो है कहीं पे भी ये ना हुकूमतों का काम है ना ही ट्रेड यूनियन मूवमेंट का काम है कि वो सिर्फ इस बात पे खुश हो जाए कि चलिए जॉब्स तो क्रिएट हो रहे हैं. जॉब्स किस तरह की क्रिएट हो रही हैं? दोज वर्कर्स हैव एक्सेस टू सम राइट. हम आपके सामने जो आज चीज़ें रखना चाहते हैं वो ये है, खैर मैं जो रिपोर्ट के अंदर बहुत कुछ है वो आप रिपोर्ट में भी देखेंगे और हमारे टीम मेंबर्स उसके ऊपर बात करेंगे तभी आपके सामने आएगा. लेकिन द सिचुएशन इज़ नॉट गुड, सिचुएशन इज़ ब्लीक एंड व्हाट इट रिक्वायर्स इज़ कि जैसे और सेक्टर्स में हमारी स्टेट ने एक्ट किया है इन लाइन विद द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजन, क्योंकि हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ये कहता है कि जी एक्सप्लॉयटेशन किसी के साथ नहीं होगी. हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ये कहता है कि जी आई हैव टू बी ट्रीटेड इक्वली एज ऑल द वर्कर्स, एज एवरीवन एल्स. तो उसी चीज़ को सामने रखते हुए व्हाट वी हैव ट्राइड टू डू वाज आल्सो टू ब्रिंग बिफोर यू अ ड्राफ्ट बिल व्हिच कैन बी यूज्ड एज अ ब्लूप्रिंट टू मे बी इनिशिएट रिफॉर्म्स. ऑब्वियसली जो लोग भी लीगल ड्राफ्टिंग में इन्वॉल्व हैं उनको अंदाज़ा है कि लॉ मेकिंग एंड लीगल ड्राफ्टिंग टेक्स इयर्स. आई मीन दिस इज जस्ट अ ब्लूप्रिंट. यस इट विल बी इम्प्रूव्ड फर्दर फर्दर फर्दर. मैं आपको एग्जांपल के तौर पे बताता हूँ कि लास्ट ईयर एज वेल वी प्लेस्ड अ ड्राफ्ट बिल इन आवर लास्ट ईयर रिपोर्ट एज वेल. इन दिस ईयर वी हैव मेड ourselves so many changes. फॉर एग्जांपल लास्ट ईयर जो है rising temperatures was not that big of an issue. Yes, हमारे रीजन हॉट है, हमेशा से ही हॉट रहा है, लेकिन पिछले साल से जिस तरह से चेंजेस आना शुरू हुई हैं वो इससे पहले नहीं थी. और इसी वजह से हमने लॉ में इस दफ़ा हीट एक्शन प्लान्स भी डाले कि जी जो कंपनीज हैं दे नीड टू हैव हीट एक्शन प्लान्स फॉर द वर्कर्स. अ वर्कर हु इज डिलीवरिंग फूड at 2 p.m. during the day during such a hot weather Are they being paid something extra? Are there rest points for the workers? मतलब ये छोटी छोटी चीज़ें हमें अपने लॉ में डालें. लॉ में डालना इसलिए ज़रूरी है कि yes, in this way the states in developing countries regulate things. नहीं तो otherwise कुछ जगहों पे developed countries में the platforms and the workers or the trade union movement can talk together and things can improve. लेकिन जो एक चीज़ आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूँ वो ये है कि none of the platforms wanted to engage in this exercise because obviously this places responsibilities on them. So they did not want to engage with us because obviously once you are talking about rights and once you are saying we want to include a draft bill in the report, it means you are putting much more responsibility that they want to bear, even that they want to consider even. I mean, if they wanted to give rights, no one stopped them before. तो ये एक चीज़ है जो आपके सामने रखना चाहता था. Can you take over, Razan, and then talk about it? Who is going to present it?
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone participating in today's launch. My name is Razan Aisha, Research Associate at the Center for Labor Research, Pakistan. I want to express my gratitude to each of you for joining us in this launch event for the report Fairwork Pakistan Ratings 2023. For the second consecutive year, Fairwork Pakistan has assessed the working conditions of platforms operating in Pakistan. This particular report encompasses the labor standards in Pakistan location-based platform economy in accordance with the Fairwork Principles. This event is basically an opportunity to unveil the thorough research and analysis done over the year. It focuses on evaluating the well-known platforms in Pakistan based on Fairwork standards. The report thoroughly looks into how platform work is changing and discusses the problems that platform workers experience. The aim of this session is to help everyone understand better and initiate a collective dialogue about improving the working conditions of platform workers in Pakistan. The Center for Labor Research, along with Fairwork Foundation, has also working on a draft legislation that aims to protect rights of platform workers in the country. Before we proceed with the presentations, let's take a moment to familiarize ourselves with the Fairwork project. The Fairwork project is based at the Oxford Internet Institute, University of Oxford, and the WZB Berlin Social Science Center. The primary objective of this initiative is to assess the operational dynamics of digital labor platforms, which is carried out by a diverse team of global researchers. We are proud members of the Fairwork Pakistan team working hand in hand to remove disparity among the gig economy workers. First of all, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Tobias Cutler, who serves as the Fairwork Pakistan lead. His exceptional support was invaluable to the Fairwork Pakistan team throughout the duration of the study conducted here, which was led by Principal Investigator Mr. Iftikhar Ahmed. Additionally, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to the platform workers, managers, and everyone involved who played an integral role in facilitating the seamless collection of data for this comprehensive report. Let's talk about the Center for Labor Research. It is an independent non-profit organization based in Rawalpindi, Pakistan. It works on comparative labor issues. The center has also published Islamic Labor Code, a blueprint for legislative reform in Muslim-majority countries based on the teaching of Holy Quran and Sunnah. On our panel today, we are honored to have Mr. Asar Malik, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Overseas Pakistanis and Human Resource Development. We have with us Dr. Mahmood Khalid, Senior Research Economist, Macro Policy Lab, PIDE. Mr. Zahida Parveen is also here, who is Regional Vice President, Northern Punjab Pakistan Workers Federation, and Raja Faizul Hassan Faiz, Independent Labour Law Expert and former Central Labour Advisor at the Ministry of Labour. We are also grateful for the participants from the government institutions and the representatives of the ILO country office. We also have here with us Mr. Waqar Memon, who is General Secretary, Pakistan Worker Federation, and Tariq Mahmood from PEMRA. We welcome everyone and thanks to all of you. In our current presentation lineup, we are pleased to introduce Dr. Tobias Cutler from the Central Fairwork team. He is a research associate at the Fairwork Secretariat based at the WZB Berlin Social Science Center. While he couldn't be here in person, he has graciously provided a video message to introduce the Fairwork project. Let's delve right into it.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to the launch of the Fairwork Pakistan 2023 report. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Tobias Kuttler. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the Fairwork project, and I'm based in Berlin, Germany. Today I'm also representing the Fairwork Central team, also on behalf of the Fairwork project coordinator and director, Professor Mark Graham. Fairwork is an international research project based at the University of Oxford in the UK and the WZB Berlin Social Science Research Center in Germany, and at many research institutes and universities in countries around the world. Today is a very exciting day because we are here today to present the results of the second round of Fairwork ratings for Pakistan. In the second year, the Fairwork Pakistan team observed 6 platforms providing ride-hailing services, food delivery services, and professional beauty services, and evaluated them against the 5 principles of Fairwork and gave them a score out of 10 based on the quality of work that they provide. So let me briefly talk about the background of the Fairwork project. And before the team from the Center for Labor Research will present the research that they have been doing over the last year. So what does Fairwork do? Fairwork works around the world to collaborate closely with workers, platforms, advocates, and policymakers to envision and build a fairer future of work. Through a global network of researchers based in 39 countries on 5 continents that you can see here on the map in red, Fairwork evaluates digital platforms' working condition and ranks them based on the 5 principles of fair work. The Fairwork project focuses on how work is experienced in the platform economy. And by platform economy, I mean the sector of work that is created by digital labor platforms like Careem or Foodpanda that deliver their services locally. As you will see this year, all of the platforms that have been researched in Pakistan aren't able to evidence that they have minimum standards of fair work in place. Indeed, 3 platforms got lower this year in comparison to last year. However, we in Fairwork, we believe that better practice of platforms is possible and that platforms have the ability to improve their practices. Rather than simply highlighting these shortfalls, we are committed in Fairwork to work together with platforms and to provide resources to them to help them institutionalize these better standards. So let me tell you a bit more about the principles that we use to evaluate the platforms. These principles are structured around 5 key themes, and these themes are fair pay, fair conditions, fair contracts, fair management, and fair representation. The first principle focuses on fair pay. Platform workers in Pakistan, as in most countries of the world, are classified as self-employed. That is, that they are not employees of these platform companies. That means that the platforms are able to pay their workers below the minimum wage. So many platform workers in Pakistan don't earn enough to make a decent living. We believe that workers, irrespective of any classification, should earn a living wage after costs. So we assess earnings according to the mandated minimum wage in the home jurisdiction, in this case in Pakistan, as well as the current living wage. The second principle focuses on fair working condition. A lot of platform work is inherently risky, as you know, and if something goes wrong, you just can't work. That means that on many platforms that you don't get an income. Therefore, platforms should have policies in place to protect workers from work-related risks and should take proactive measures to protect and promote the health and safety of workers. The third principle focuses on fair contracts. The terms and conditions governing platform work are not always clear and accessible to workers. So therefore, Principle 3 requires platforms to make their contracts and terms and conditions accessible, readable, and comprehensible to workers. Contracts should be in a language that workers understand, and the contract should be accessible to workers at all time. Workers should also be aware of and hopefully also be involved in changes that are made to their contracts. Regardless of the worker's employment status, the current contract should be free of clauses which unreasonably exclude liability on the part of the service user and the platform. Principle 4 is on fair platform management. Often there is no due process when it comes to disciplinary or dismissal procedures. The accounts of workers who depend on a platform can be deactivated, and often this happens without a fair process. Therefore, there should be a documented process through which workers can be heard, can appeal decisions affecting them, and be informed of the reasons behind those deactivations and decisions. There must be a clear channel of communication to workers involving the ability to appeal management decisions or deactivations. The use of algorithms must be transparent and result in equitable outcomes for workers. There should be an identifiable and documented policy that ensures equity in the way workers are managed on a platform. For example, in cases when they are fired or disciplined, but also in the hiring process of workers. The fifth principle is on fair representation. Most platform workers don't have collective or associational power. That is quite common in other economic sectors. So they are in a structurally quite weak bargaining position, which allows platforms to unilaterally determine wages and working conditions. Therefore, platforms should provide a documented process through which worker voice can be expressed. Irrespective of the employment classification, workers should have the right to organize in collective bodies, and platforms should be prepared to cooperate and negotiate with them. So let me go a bit more into detail of the scoring system that you can see here on this slide. The Fairwork principles that I just explained form the basis of how we score the platforms. Each Fairwork principle is broken down into 2 points, as you can see. The second point can only be awarded if the first point has been fulfilled. Every platform receives a score out of 10, and platforms are only given a point when they can satisfactorily demonstrate their implementation of the principles. Failing to achieve a point does not necessarily mean that a platform does not comply with the principle in question. It simply means that we are unable to evidence the compliance. This is quite important to understand and differentiate. So let me end this short introduction with highlighting some of the major achievements of the new Fairwork Pakistan report. Since I'm not able to highlight all the achievements, of course, in this short time, I will just point to some major aspects while the team of Fairwork Pakistan will go into more detail. First, I would like to mention the effort of the report that is continued from last year's report of directing our attention to the topic of misclassification of workers. The issue of employment classification of platform workers is a major debate in all parts of the world, you can say. Major institutions like the International Labour Organization recognize that the current indicators are not sufficient for determining an employment relationship of platform workers. And therefore, we believe that it is high time to establish new criteria or revise the existing criteria. This need is, for example, recognized also by the European Union, which currently is under development of a new directive on platform work, which is also debated at the moment. And this directive also centers on the employment classification of platform workers. In Pakistan, the current misclassification of platform workers as independent contractors has the effect that around 700,000 platform workers, and this number is according to the Fairwork Pakistan team's estimates, are not able to benefit from various labor law protections. Based on the criteria of the ILO, in the new Fairwork Pakistan report, a detailed analysis is provided on the question whether platform workers of all 6 platforms that are evaluated this year should be considered to be in an employment relationship. The second major theme that I would like to mention here is that Fairwork Pakistan has again observed cases of negative income of from platform work among workers that were interviewed, predominantly amongst ride-hailing workers. This is a very worrisome development that is not only observed in Pakistan, but has already been observed in Bangladesh in last year's rating cycle and was described in the last year's report for Bangladesh, but also, for example, in the Philippines, as highlighted in the new Fairwork Philippines report that was just launched 2 weeks ago. Recognizing the factors that lead to negative income and platform debt from platform work is crucial for implementing measures to alleviate the financial vulnerability of ride-hailing workers and other platform workers in Pakistan. Let me end here and congratulate the authors of the Fairwork Pakistan Report 2023. Namely the principal investigator Iftikhar Ahmad and his team consisting of Shamsa Sohail, Ambreen Riaz, Tasmina Tahir, Razan Ayesha, Sima Haidar Aziz, Atta Jamil, and Sitra Nisamuddin. Thank you so much for your fantastic work in the last year and for this really groundbreaking report that not only includes analysis of the landscape of the platform economy in Pakistan, but also proposes a draft bill to regulate platform work in Pakistan. I hope, and I'm pretty sure about, that the report will reach a wide audience in Pakistan as well as internationally. So now let me give the floor to the Fairwork Pakistan team to talk more about their research. Once again, thank you very much for joining today, and I wish you an insightful report launch event. Thank you very much.
We thank Dr. Tobias for his contribution to this session. Now let's move on to the presentation of the report findings of the year 2023, which will be delivered by Ms. Ambreen Riaz. Ambreen holds LLB degree from University of London and currently works as a research associate at the Center for Labour Research. She is involved in comparative labour law research at Center for Labour Research. Please, Ambreen, share with us the findings of Pakistan's Platform Economy Report 2023.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we take a close look into the Fairwork Pakistan Report 2023 that sheds light on working conditions of platform workers in Pakistan. Our study involved collecting data from a total of 84 platform workers during the months of March and April in the year 2023 from the cities of Islamabad and Rawalpindi. These workers were drawn from 6 platforms that play a significant role in the gig economy in Pakistan. Among these platforms, we evaluated 4 ride-hailing services, namely Bykea, Careem, inDrive, and Uber. We also looked at Foodpanda for food delivery services and GharPar that provides beauty services. The main focus of our evaluation was to assess how these platforms measure up against 5 Fairwork Principles, namely fair pay, fair conditions, fair contracts, fair management, and fair representation. Tobias has already provided a detailed explanation of the Fairwork Principles and the scoring process used to assess each platform's adherence. So before any further ado, let's unveil the ratings for insights into how each platform fares. This year, unfortunately, none of the platforms managed to score any points across the Fairwork Principles. This is a significant letdown compared to the previous year, as mentioned before, where we saw some positive outcomes. Specifically, platforms like Uber, Foodpanda, and GharPar managed to secure 1 point each for their efforts in adhering to certain Fair Work standards. However, this year's results highlight the need for improved practices across the board. Let's break down the key findings of these individual principles to understand them better. Starting with fair pay, our research concluded that none of the platforms provided substantial evidence that workers were earning above the established minimum wage. Unfortunately, the rising expenses related to travel, vehicle maintenance have eroded the platform's adherence to these minimum wage standards. Interestingly, there was a contrast with the previous year when GharPar managed to achieve a favorable score in meeting the minimum wage requirements. Drawing from Tobias's insights, it's concerning to learn that 10% of the workers face negative incomes, resulting in accumulating debt. Negative income and platform debt are not new concepts to the Pakistan platform economy. This trend has continued from the previous year. This highlights the pressing need to prioritize financial stability for platform workers. These findings also stress the importance of reassessing income structures to ensure both fair and sustainable earnings, ultimately contributing to improved working conditions overall. Moving on to fair conditions. Our evaluation raised concerns about the absence of proper safety training and equipment to mitigate task-specific risks. The level of safety awareness among workers was found to be limited, with brief or inadequate safety sessions being reported. We observed that platforms like Foodpanda and Bykea offered paid options for safety gear, but the access to free safety equipment was lacking. There were also challenges in effectively addressing risk associated with lone working, and experiences with emergency buttons and helplines varied. Moreover, there were inadequate provisions for essential facilities such as rest areas, toilets, and nourishment, thereby neglecting the physical and the mental well-being of the workers. Turning our attention to fair contracts, our assessment revealed some concerning aspects. None of the assessed platforms effectively notified the workers of changes in their terms and conditions. Additionally, the accessibility of contracts and terms and conditions were either absent or limited, with a lack of availability in the local language. This hinders the workers' comprehension of their terms. The contracts often contained disclaimers that exempted the platforms from liability for negligence or poor working conditions, thereby again limiting workers' recourse. Transparency was also lacking in the realm of dynamic pricing and payment calculation, leaving workers uninformed about how their earnings were determined. It's important to note that while platforms like Foodpanda, Bykea, and GharPar operated within the local legal frameworks, adhering to domestic laws and regulations, internationally operating platforms like Careem, inDrive, and Uber fell under foreign jurisdictions. When it comes to fair management, the results were relatively positive. Our assessment found that all platforms offered accessible communication channels, including live chat support to enable direct interaction between workers and representatives. The live chat feature proved to be a valuable means for workers to engage in real-time conversations and seek prompt assistance for various concerns. Platforms actively promoted an appeals process that empowered workers to address issues without fearing penalties. This appeals process encompassed a wide range of concerns, including low ratings, payment discrepancies, deactivations, and penalties. However, the explicit documentation of appeals process was lacking, and that is why none of the platforms managed to score in this regard. Interviews with workers also provided insights into the appeals process, that raising individual concerns or appealing disciplinary actions did not result in penalties for the workers. While some platforms like Uber and GharPar had anti-discrimination policies in place, these policies were not fully oriented towards actively supporting workers. This raises interesting questions about the effectiveness of these policies and their practical impact on worker experiences. Moving on to fair representation, we observed that none of the platforms met the criteria for collective representation, highlighting a gap in fair working conditions. Nonetheless, we did come across sporadic instances of worker collective action as seen in platforms like Bykea and Careem. These instances provide glimpses of the potential for change and improvement in this area. Our platform in focus this year was Foodpanda. During this segment, we'll closely analyze how Foodpanda's performance corresponds to the Fairwork Principles we have been investigating throughout the year. Throughout this exploration, we aim to gain a more comprehensive insight into Foodpanda's endeavors and obstacles in fostering equitable working conditions for its platform workers. In the context of fair pay, Foodpanda claims that its riders can achieve a fair living wage ranging from 38,000 to 40,000 rupees per month. However, our research paints a different picture. Contrary to this claim, the actual earnings of Foodpanda riders are significantly impacted by various work-related costs such as fuel and maintenance. When it comes to fair contracts, we have identified a few noteworthy points. Firstly, there is a gap in providing an Urdu version of their contract or terms and conditions during the sign-up process, limiting accessibility and transparency for a significant portion of their potential workers. Additionally, certain clauses exempt the platform from liability and they need to be addressed to ensure fair and balanced contracts. To foster transparency, a greater level of openness in data collection and payment calculations is also needed, allowing the workers to better understand and advocate for their remuneration. Turning our attention to fair contracts, we have pinpointed certain areas of concerns here as well. The absence of safety gear coverage for riders possesses a considerable risk for their well-being. Vital to ensuring a safe and dignified work environment, the implementation of a non-discrimination policy along with mechanisms for addressing such issues is crucial. This not only safeguards workers but also contributes to an atmosphere of respect and inclusivity. Regarding fair management, Foodpanda has established an accessible communication channel via a dispatch option, facilitating direct interaction with representatives. The platform's existing appeal process provides an avenue for workers to voice concerns without fearing repercussions. However, there is room for improvement in terms of transparency and accountability, which could be achieved by integrating these appeals processes directly into contractual agreements. It's promising to note the absence of evidence indicating penalties for workers who appeal disciplinary actions. Looking at fair representations, there are pertinent observations to consider. Currently, there is no documented method for Foodpanda workers to collectively express their concerns without facing potential risks. Furthermore, there isn't a written commitment from the platform to formally recognize and engage with independent worker bodies or trade unions. This absence of a structured approach potentially places workers at a disadvantage when expressing concerns or demonstrating an interest in forming independent collective bodies. Now let's turn our attention to the central theme of this year's report, the strategic combination of Fairwork Principles with the Islamic Labour Code. This theme highlights the integration of Islamic principles into the labor rights in Pakistan, offering a unique perspective on fostering fair and just working conditions. Islamic nations, including Pakistan, have embraced the goal of aligning legal systems with Islamic principles. In Pakistan, the constitution mandates that all laws adhere to Islamic teachings from the Holy Quran and Sunnah. Institutions like the Council of Islamic Ideology and the Federal Sharia Court ensure that legal frameworks resonate with these values. A key example is the Darshan Masih case, where the Supreme Court addressed bonded labor resulted in the Bonded Labor System Abolition Act of 1992. The Federal Sharia Court continued this alignment by challenging exploitative labor practices using Islamic teachings. Embracing these principles, the Center of Labor Research introduced the Islamic Labour Code in 2021. This comprehensive code draws inspiration from Islamic teachings, focusing on fair treatment, social security, and workers' rights. The code echoes Fairwork Principles, emphasizing respect, fair compensation, and just practices. This integration aims to promote justice, equity, and dignity within the modern legal landscape of Pakistan. Thank you so much for your time.
Now I'd like to request Mr. Iftikhar Ahmed to share with us his expertise into this topic of regulating platform work in Pakistan through legislation. Iftihar Ahmed is a comparative labor law expert. He was also a member of Labor Expert Group and has worked with the Government of Pakistan Ministry of OP and HRG as an advisor on the labor market and legislative reform issues. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sabreen, and Tobias and everyone. Thanks to all your work. I also wanted to indicate two things that we did not talk about at the start. On this day, we are launching actually two reports. One is the report with the Fairwork Foundation, Oxford University. The other is our own report. Okay, so why regulate platform work? As we have seen, the situation is bleak. None of the platforms in Pakistan scored a point. This is not a good situation. I mean, there are some countries like us, in 39 countries, where Fairwork Foundation is working, that the platforms are scoring so low. But what is different from there is that the state has already been acting to improve the situation in the informal economy in our country. For example, in the last 10 years, if we look at it, there has been legislation on home-based work, there has been legislation on domestic work, there has been legislation on agriculture workers. So that's the reason which prompted us to prepare a draft bill, which can be considered not only by the federal government, but also by the provincial government. So let's come back to the idea of why regulate platform work. When you look at the report, and we have highlighted it in the report, there has been a cost of living crisis in the country, especially after March. Before March, when we were collecting data, the situation was different. From April, we could already see when we were collecting data, the situation is already changing. Headline inflation is more than 38%, food inflation more than 50%. These are just the numbers, and I'm sure as all general numbers, the situation has already worsened. At the same time, we have high informal employment. Informal employment simply means that you don't have access to any labor law protections. And the situation is that more than 80% of our workforce is in the informal employment and unprotected employment. Then there's the issue of unskilled and unemployed youth. More than 2/3 of our population is under 30. But then 1/6 of the population does not have access to schooling, and they are not engaged in any productive activity or of education, employment, or training, which means that your 16% of your population is not getting any skills. They are young. Yes, in some years they will cross the age of 30, but they will not have any skills. But then there's also research available, especially from PI, which also indicates to us that even when the youth are educated, their unemployment rates are high, more than 30%. And then people, even when they are working, they are earning so low wages that they are under the current poverty lines. But then what does this situation do to the platform economy? What it does is that it brings to it the unlimited supply of labor. And our research also indicates that most of the workers, they are coming from rural areas or smaller cities. They're coming to Islamabad, Rawalpindi, or Lahore. We did some part of the research in Lahore as well for Uber, because Uber is now located only in Lahore. And then they are coming from smaller cities. So there is a migration, because we already know that inflation has been comparatively higher in the rural areas. Now you can't say कि कोई मसला नहीं, अगर शहर में कीमतें बढ़ गई तो मैं गांव चला जाता हूँ. नहीं, अब वहाँ पे भी गुजारा नहीं हो सकेगा. So what it does to platform economy is that it brings to them unlimited supply of labor. And why people want to join the platform economy or platform work? Why do they want to join Careem, Bykea, and Uber? Because it allows you to earn your daily living. No other work allows you as quickly as this does. You can sign up in half an hour, and if you sign up yourself, you can do it in 5 minutes. If you go to their hub, it can take maybe half an hour, 1 hour, but then you can earn from the same day. There are no interviews, difficult interviews. वो आप कहीं पे अपना CV लेके गए, उन्होंने चेक करना शुरू किया, आपने आपको हायर करना है कि नहीं करना, किसी से सिफारिशें करवाएं. It has created employment for people. There's no doubt in that. But what we find is that there is an issue of platform debt. And what platform debt is that the cost of working with the platform is exceeding earnings. You are paying from your own pocket because you're earning on a daily basis. The workers don't realize that they're actually paying more to the platform than they are earning from it. And this has been consistent. And this is consistent not only in Pakistan, but also in our own whole region. And it was also last year that a reasonable number of workers are experiencing this specific that their incomes are much lower than what they are spending on the platform. But then we also noted that this is a specific issue with the ride-hailing workers. Because they have to spend a lot of money to start work. For example, if a person takes a car from the bank on lease, then they have to pay the lease as well as, I mean, yes, if a person has the car with themselves already, then it's different, but generally, many more people have joined the platform economy also by going to the banks and asking for leases. What differentiates the platform economy in our country is also, this is very specific, that in many countries the platforms have multiplied. In our country, the number of platforms have shrunk. And what does it create? It creates monopolies. And when monopolies are there, they have control. They would not want to be regulated. That's why we have talked about Foodpanda. Foodpanda controls more than 90% of your food market. So you can't regulate them now because there's no competitor with them. In ride-hailing, yes, you have Uber, Careem, and all these. But then in the food delivery market, there's no competitor. Yes, there can be small companies, but there's no company at this level. And some companies have totally closed in the last 20 years. Some have scaled back their operations. And even Uber had to scale back its operations only to Lahore. Now it is limited only to Lahore or Kहीं पे नहीं है. Third thing I wanted to highlight is that when the platform economy started and these platforms started working in Pakistan 2015-16 में जब ये तमाम platforms आए Uber और Careem, they said we are allowing women to join the workforce. And then they did something as well, but because they could not continue with that, so what happened is that now many women are leaving these platforms because they say that the platforms have not acted on their promises. वो 8 मार्च को तो उनको दिखाना चाहते हैं सिर्फ, but then they don't want to continue with the promises the whole year because the year is composed of 365 days, not one day that you show someone on your social media and say, yes, we are promoting you. What could have happened? Because this is also a reality that women are and will be working as home-based workers, specifically online workers. And many women are working online, and despite the fact that we have legislation on home-based work in all the provinces, but there are no provisions for social security. Obviously, government of Pakistan does not control the platforms that are existing in Europe. And जो platform यहाँ पे आगे register हो उसको तो फिर भी हम control कर लेंगे. But if a platform is working only online and they are registered somewhere in Europe, we are not going to control them. The only thing that we could have done was that we provide those online workers, women online workers, social security. वो मैं आपको ये बता दूं कि हमारे किसी भी law में, home based work law में, सिवाय बलूचिस्तान के किसी भी law में online workers के लिए social security की बात ही नहीं. जब आपने law में नहीं डाला, तो आपने उनको social security किधर से देनी? This is something that we could have done. We did not do. What I call all this phenomena is that this is rightless growth, where yes, we all know the idea of jobless growth, but I think what we are seeing now is rightless growth. That yes, employment is being generated, but then what kind of employment are people getting? Okay, so as I said that yes, these companies started working in 2015. They came with the idea, you are working part-time, flexible work, supplementing your income, be your own boss. These kind of slogans were given. But now we know that people are working more than 12 to 15 hours per day with these companies. There is a very small fraction of people who are working only part-time, 3 to 4 hours. Most of the people, their livelihood depends on these platforms. So actually, they are in an employment relationship. They are not doing it once a week or once a day for 2 hours only. And then with time, what has happened is that the companies, they wanted to lure workers, obviously, so they started with high bonuses. आपको याद होगा लोग कहते थे भाई ऊपर के साथ तो काम करो मैं काम ना भी करूं तो मुझे 30,000 रुपया मिलता है. No, it is not the situation anymore. It is not anymore. You have to work, and if you have to keep your app open, and if you don't respond in 5 seconds, the ride disappears. So you have to be looking out for jobs, and you are competing with hundreds of remaining drivers as well, because they're also looking at their phone. At the start, most of the workers were young workers. At the start of their 20s, they wanted to earn extra income. Now we are finding more and more people who are above 30 years of age, because they are looking for employment, they are looking for jobs, they are looking for some kind of income that they can earn on a daily basis. But then the situation, how it is changing is that with the higher prices of fuel, obviously the demand is not unlimited. I mean, people can't, I'm sure all of you have seen Bykea and Careem, the bike drivers now, they are taking more than 2 people on a single bike. आप लोगों ने 3 देखे होंगे पीछे बैठे हुए. क्यों लोग जा रहे हैं? Because they can't afford a taxi of 500 rupees. They want to pay only 200 rupees, and in this way, 3 people are going on a single bike. But then the problem is that with time, the companies were able to increase supply, but obviously the demand is not there because of the higher fuel prices. The good thing, as I mentioned before, it allows people to earn their daily livelihood, daily living, but then we need to talk about the responsibility of the state, how it can ensure that that daily living, daily livelihood that I'm earning is decent. We just wanted to show this, that in the next slide we will be showing what are the current state of rights of the platform workers and how are they being wronged by the employers. We just wanted to use the word rights versus wrongs. Last time we used the word rights versus lefts, because I was talking to my son and he said, yes, I believe in rights and lefts. So but then yes, we were looking at some report and they used the word rights versus wrongs. So, but what actually it means is that how the workers, and this is why we have shown workers in the grayscale as well, how they are being wronged by the platforms over time. And this is how it is. So this is a whole slew of rights that you get if you are considered a worker or an employee under your labor law. The first clause, you get all kind of rights. Your wages, the premium wage rate if you work beyond working hours, normal working hours if you work on a weekly rest day, on a public holiday, during night hours. You get to unionize, you get the right of collective bargaining, you get an employment contract, you get a severance payment, all these rights. If you are considered an independent contractor, which the platforms, all these platforms, consider their workers, you don't have access to any rights, except one. And that is with regard to the prohibition of sexual harassment. That's the only law in our country that is applicable to everyone. Other than that, there's no law which applies to the independent. If you consider a person as an independent contractor, no other labor law will be applicable to that. But then this is not a problem only of the workers, कि उनको उनके right से deprive किया जा रहा है. The state is losing a lot. The state is losing 32.5 billion rupees per annum because if these people were considered workers or employees under the labor law, the state would be getting this much contribution from the platforms and the worker, 1%. How much is this amount? 41 billion rupees are needed to hold elections in your country. 41 बिलियन रुपया चाहिए इलेक्शन कमीशन को जो उनको इस दफा दिया गया है. वो जब भी इलेक्शन करवाएं, but 32.25 billion rupees government can get per year from the platform. And why and how they can get it? Because the platform economy is the most documented part of your economy. Government knows with each ride that as a platform worker I take, मैंने 200 रुपया कमाया, मैंने 10 रुपये गवर्नमेंट को टैक्स दिया उस पे. Government knows very well how much am I earning every day. So why not take the social contributions from the platform? It's so easy. Of all the informal economy workers, when you look at domestic workers, home-based workers, shops workers, factories workers, वहाँ पे हम झूठ बोल देते हैं, नहीं हमारे पास वर्कर इतने हैं. इसमें तो प्लेटफॉर्म को भी पता है और गवर्नमेंट को भी पता है. How many workers are working with Uber and Careem every day, and how much are they earning because government is charging tax on every single ride, every single delivery. But I also want to show you something. 2 million people, at this moment only 2 million people, 2 million workers are registered with social security institutions. Pakistan के सारे social security institutions का 2 million workers हैं. If you add these 7 lakh workers, it raises their contribution levels, it raises the number of workers registered by 1/3, and the contribution that they will be getting will be so much, and they will be able to do whatever they want to do for the workers, for the workers and their families. So it is not only an issue of exploitation of workers, the state is also losing. In general, when we talk about whether there exists an employment relationship or not, in a law or in a court case, there we develop employment indicators. कि अच्छा जी अगर ये situation अगर हुई तो then there exists an employment relationship. अगर ये situation ना हुई तो फिर it means that employment relationship तो exist नहीं करता, independent contractor बंदा अपना काम कर रहा है, ठीक है. अच्छा हमने जो है the consent convention, not the convention, the recommendation of ILO is recommendation 198. उसको सामने रखते हुए हमने ये 5 indicators बना दिए. इसी तरह के indicators या control test हमारे court cases में भी इसी तरह से सामने रखे जाते हैं कि चलिए employment relationship है कि नहीं है. तो हमने ये कहा कि भाई since the digital labor platform, all of these platforms, they are determining the upper limits or the level of remuneration. Rate जो है वो set करता है platform कि मेरी राइड का रेट क्या होगा. तो भाई ये तो इंडिपेंडेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के तौर पे तो मैं अपने रेट चेंज कर सकता हूँ. यस देयर कैन बी एन आर्गुमेंट कि जो इनड्राइव है वो नहीं करता. नो वो भी करता है, वो आपको बेस लेवल वो ही देता है. एंड देन इट आल्सो कंट्रोल्स यू हाउ फार यू कैन गो. इट डज नॉट मीन कि वो बेस लेवल तो आपको 500 दे और आपके मैं 1000 रुपए लूंगा, ऐसे नहीं है. they also control it. So the control is fundamentally in the hand of the platform. So that's why we have given a tick mark, which means there exists an employment relationship. Second point पे आते हैं, if the platform requires the worker to respect specific binding rules with regard to the conduct towards the recipient, कुछ platforms कहते हैं कि जी आपने ये यूनिफॉर्म पहनना. अब यूनिफॉर्म मैंने पहन लिया तो भाई मैं इंडिपेंडेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के दर्जा, मैं तो कुछ और कर भी नहीं सकता. अच्छा, प्लेटफॉर्म कहता है कि जी आपने जो गाड़ी चलानी है मेरे साथ वो इस मॉडल से नीचे की नहीं, 2000 से नीचे की नहीं होनी चाहिए. तो भाई मैं इंडिपेंडेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हूँ तो आपको इससे क्या मसला है? मैं तो जो भी गाड़ी चलाऊं आपके बंदे को एक जगह से दूसरी जगह लेके जाना है ना. तो when there is a control like that, there exists an employment relationship. और ये पूरी दुनिया में ऐसे ही हो रहा है. यूरोपियन यूनियन भी इसी तरह से ही काम कर रहा है इस पे कि there need to exist a 5 or 7 point criteria जिस पे अगर एक वर्कर और एम्प्लॉयर और जो डिजिटल लेबर प्लेटफॉर्म है उनका रिलेशनशिप अगर इस तरह से प्रूव हो जाए, there exists an employment relationship. थर्ड पॉइंट पे आ जाते हैं. The digital labor platform supervises the performance of work through ratings. वो ratings हमसे करवाता है, but then once we rate it, then the person's future work depends on that. The person can be deactivated if you give a negative rating and there's a consistent negative rating. The person can be deactivated from the platform, which means they will not be able to join the platform again if they अगर कोई अगर इस तरह की अगर उसके खिलाफ अगर मतलब वो कोई अगर चीज़ अगर सामने आ जाए, शिकायत आ जाए, तो उसको डीएक्टिवेट हमेशा के लिए भी किया जा सकता है, ब्लॉक भी किया जा सकता है. इंडिपेंडेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स के साथ तो ऐसे नहीं होता. The fourth point, the retail labor platform restricts the platform worker to choose the working hours or periods of absence. अच्छा वो कहते हैं कि आप अपनी मर्जी से काम करते हैं, हम तो नहीं रोकते आपको 2 घंटे काम करें, 4 घंटे काम करें. Okay. What if I'm working with the platform और मैं किसी वजह से सिक हो गया और या मुझे गांव जाना पड़ गया और मैं महीने के लिए अब उसको ज्वाइन नहीं किया. My rating would drop, which means when I come back, I have to start from zero. तो बात ये कि it means you are controlling my period of absence. I can't be absent as I want. If you talk to Foodpanda workers, they will tell you during their shift they have to ask even for a 10-minute break. If they are away from the main place, they have to inform that मैं इतना दूर क्यों खड़ा हूँ, और लोग हमें यही सब कुछ हमारे सामने लाते हैं. The last point, the retail labor platform restricts the person performing work from building a client base or to work with any third party. Yes, ये जो point है इसमें ये जो आमतौर पे जो कंपनियां हमारी राइड हेलिंग वो अलाउ करती हैं कि yes you can work with any other platform, हमें उससे कोई मसला नहीं. लेकिन ये जो एक कंपनी है Foodpanda still regulates you because first thing you are wearing their uniform. अब ऐसे नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि जो राइड हेलिंग में है वो तो ऊबर भी उसने ऑन की हुई है, करीम भी ऑन की हुई है, बाइकिया भी ऑन की हुई है, inDrive भी जहाँ से राइड है वहाँ से पकड़ ली. Foodpanda वाला वर्कर तो वो तो कम से कम उन 8 घंटों में या 6 घंटों में कुछ भी और नहीं कर सकता because he is wearing the uniform, he has a bag behind him, so he can't build his own client base as well. कि वो आप हमारे घर में खाना डिलीवर करने और वो अगली दफा कहे आप सर जी मुझे डायरेक्ट ऑर्डर किया करें मैं ले आया करूँगा, नहीं वो ऐसे हो नहीं सकता. तो ये what we wanted to show you was that there exists an employment relationship. Companies can claim yes and they do all over the world कि हम तो नहीं टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज हैं, हमने तो कुछ नहीं, हम तो सिर्फ कंज्यूमर और सर्विस प्रोवाइडर को एक जगह मिला रहे हैं. तो वो ऐसा नहीं है. They exist an employment relationship. That's what we wanted to show you. So how can the state right all these wrongs that are being done to the platform workers? Obviously the first responsibility is of the state. जिस मैंने पहले अर्ज किया कि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का आर्टिकल 3 कहता है कि रिमूवल ऑफ एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, people will not be exploited and people would be dealt equally before the law. तो ये इन दो चीज़ों को सामने रखते हुए the state not only has to act because in this way the workers are being exploited, secondly they are not being treated equally before the law क्योंकि इनका एम्प्लॉयमेंट रिलेशनशिप तो है लेकिन कंपनी से क्लेम तो यही है कि जी ये इंडिपेंडेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हैं, लेकिन वो इंडिपेंडेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर असल में है नहीं बिकॉज जो हमारे सामने चीज़ें आती हैं they exist an employment relationship. So what we suggested was is that there needs to be enactment of legislation, namely the Islamabad Capital Territory Platform Workers Protection Act or bill. The reason we have put Islamabad is only because we are sitting in the capital territory. Otherwise, the bill can be replicated anywhere in the country. We've also shared the bill. There was a demand from the Fairwork country teams. We shared this bill also with the Fairwork country teams in all those countries because they wanted to use it in their own countries as well. The fundamental aim जो हमारा है वो यही है that the government regulates the sector and people have access to certain fundamental rights. Yes, this is a reality that even when a law is enacted, people still don't get rights. Yes, it is a reality. But once a law is there, with time, we hope that people will follow the law, or at least the courts are there. The courts can also always be engaged to ensure that we get rights or whatever is being promised in the law. मैं इसका बस वो शॉर्ट सा एक आपके सामने रखता हूँ. What we did was that कि हमने जो लॉ की इसमें शामिल की है टेक्स्ट उसमें यही इंश्योर किया है कि that the worker gets the right to a minimum wage. Their working hours should be limited to 8 hours per day and 48 hours per week. Now general working hours are 12 to 15 hours. 12 से 15 घंटे बंदा काम कर, कोई मसला नहीं कर रहा है तो फिर the company should pay him more, him or her more. Similarly, if people are working on weekly rest days or public holidays or during night hours or inclement weather यही है जी वो खाना हमने मंगवाया हुआ है तो जो हम घर बैठे होते हैं हम तो कहते हैं भाई खाना नहीं आया लेकिन वो जो बाहर इतनी तेज बारिश हो रही है the person is supposed to deliver और वो हमारा खाना खराब है तो फिर हम उसके खिलाफ शिकायत भी फौरन कर देंगे तो इशू ये है कि if the person is working during inclement weather आमतौर पे मसला ये है कि हमारा जो पूरी दुनिया में जो लॉ मेकिंग है वो असल में है कि द वर्क प्लेस वुड बी अ सिंगल प्लेस जिसको आप रेगुलेट कर लेते थे अच्छा जी कोई इंस्पेक्टर आया हुआ कि चेक कर गया ना अच्छा भाई जगह ठीक है मतलब जो लॉ में ये बताया गया कि भाई इस रूम में इतने लोग हो सकते हैं इतने लोगों ने काम करना है इस तरह की टेबल होगी वो चीज़ तो डूएबल थी अब ये वर्कर एक जगह से दूसरी जगह लगातार मूव कर रहा है हिज वर्क प्लेस इज रोड एंड his or her car or vehicle, whatever they have, तो वो उसको regulate करना इसलिए खासा difficult है. Similarly, we have added the provisions on health and safety of the workers. We have, and there is also provision on heat action plans so that during this heated weather, the platform should have plans for the workers. कि जी या तो वो ये करें कि जी during these hours there should be no deliveries, or maybe या तो डिलीवरीज के लिए टाइम ज्यादा हो या रेट्स ज्यादा हो there can be different options. Similarly, we have talked about in the draft legislation about different kinds of leave for workers as well as access to social security system. The third point is about fair contracts. We have included in the draft bill the provisions on employment contracts and specifically requiring the platform to provide these contracts in local language so that हमारे वर्कर्स को पता तो चले असल में इशू ये है कि when a worker joins the platform through the app we are saying yes we agree but at the same time we have signed the contract already by saying I agree and the person joins the platform by signing a contract but they don't know what they have signed for तो वो हम ये चाह रहे हैं कि कम से कम उसमें वर्कर को पता हो कि yes these are the conditions that I'm signing up to. In the fair management, yes, we are again saying that there should be the provisions on non-discrimination, and for the fair representation, we have included the provisions on the right to unionize and collective bargaining. Similarly, we have included a length provision on works councils. The reason we have not included a lengthier provision on right to collective bargaining or right to unionize is that because that right will already be dealt under the separate legislation वो चाहे 2012 की हो यहाँ के लिए या सूबाई लेवल पे जो उनके अपने laws हैं because if we include all those provisions in that तो वो ये law बहुत लंबा हो जाता इस वजह से हमने वो जो चीज़ें उनको वहीं पे छोड़ा है जो कुछ हम ये रिकमेंड कर रहे हैं ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ we are just saying it and it is not happening all over the world. No, many more countries are doing it, and the reason we highlighted these countries is that you can see that this is generally the global south that we are talking about. We can start from the east side: Korea, China, Philippines, Indonesia, India. And we ourselves, जैसे मैंने पहले कहा कि हमारे यहाँ पे सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट का जो लॉ है वो अप्लाई होता है एवरी वर्क प्लेस पे इंक्लूडिंग दीज वर्कर्स एज वेल तो ये रिफॉर्म्स जो हैं ये तमाम दुनिया में हो रही हैं ये सिर्फ हम सिर्फ इस पे ये नहीं कह रहे कि सिर्फ ये यहाँ पे ही हो जाए इसके बारे में हमने ये because I don't want to take much of the time we've included all the information here you can look at this here in our own report. Yes, we included this only that the decent work or decent working conditions should be available to every worker, irrespective of the sector they are working in. They should have access to fundamental labor rights, the right to unionize and collective bargaining. They should be free from forced labor or child labor. There should be non-discrimination, and they should be able to work in safe and healthy workplaces. They should also have access to adequate living wages, and there should be limits on the hours of work, and they should have access to certain basic level of social protections in the country. Thank you so much for your listening, and Thank you so much.
Before we move further, let me introduce myself first. My name is Tasmina Tahir, Research Associate at the Center for Labour Research, Pakistan. I express my gratitude to all the distinguished guests for being a part of this significant launch event. Now let's hear from our distinguished panelists who will be sharing their insights on our platform economy report, offering valuable perspective for further improvement. With that, we would like to request Mr. Azhar Malik to share a few words. Mr. Malik is working as the Deputy Secretary at the Ministry of Overseas Pakistanis and Human Resource Development. His work includes reporting on ILO conventions, dealing with the ratification of ILO conventions, keeping a watch on labor legislation from an international perspective, and coordination with the provinces on these matters.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As ma'am has already introduced, I am Azhar Malik and working as Deputy Secretary at the Ministry of OPHRD. I am very thankful to the Center of Labour Research for extending their invitation to this launch event for platform work on the rights of location-based platform workers. I congratulate the Fairwork team of the CLR for holding this second launch of the Fairwork Pakistan Ratings 2023. I think first launch was in the year 2022, with the aim to foster a deeper understanding among stakeholders to enhance and uphold the labour standards within Pakistan's platform economy. Ministry of OPHRD appreciates the efforts of CLR, who has been working together with the Fairwork Foundation to draft a bill with the aim of protecting the rights of platform workers. As Mr. Iftikhar has already mentioned, that was already part of their previous year's report. Since 2015, Pakistan has experienced significant growth in the platform economy. This includes both types of platform work on location, for example, ride-hailing, delivery, domestic and personal care services, and cloud work, that is software development, data entry, digital design, etc. Pakistan has nearly more than 1% of its labor force engaged in the gig economy through online and location-based services. Fairwork Pakistan estimates that there are approximately 0.7 to 1 million platform workers in Pakistan. Almost 2/3 of them are involved in the cloud online work, while 1/3 in location-based platform work. This report offers an examination of the evolving platform work, exploring into the challenges and opportunities faced by platform workers, and this Fairwork Pakistan ratings for the year 2023, that is on labor standards in the platform economy report, evaluates 6 of the Pakistan's digital labor platforms that already highlighted in during previous presentation, that is Bykea, Careem, Foodpanda, GharPar, inDrive and Uber, against 5 principles of fair work. And these 5 principles already elaborated in detail. These are fair pay, fair conditions, fair contracts, fair management and fair representation. Given each platform a score from 0 to 10. The ILO governing body also decided in its 347th session during March 2023 to the potential adoption of an international labor standard in the form of a convention or a recommendation. Similarly, it is pertinent to mention that there is no legal binding definition of the digital labor platform in Pakistan, and there is no specific regulation applicable to the digital labor platform in Pakistan. And digital labor platforms are not considered to be employed in Pakistan. Mr. Iftikhar has already very explicitly cleared these all things. A report published earlier in August 2022, Pakistan rating for the 2022 labor standards in the platform economy, was conducted by Fairwork Foundation, Oxford University, UK and Center for Labour Research, Pakistan, which exhibited good and bad practices in platform economy. That report also revolved around Fairwork's same 5 principles as mentioned previously, and that study found that most of the companies failed to ensure minimum standards of fair work, such as ensuring that all workers earn above the national minimum standards. And unfortunately, the report of 2023 exhibits more darker situation, a dismal situation, as if we are going to compare it with the report of 2022. The draft legislation earlier highlighted by CLR mainly focused the fair work principles and gives platform workers the workplace rights, and the salient feature of the platform legislation that was in previous report, and few of the things have been replicated, and most of the things there have been changes over there. And these legislation included right to employment contracts, right to minimum wages, premium wages for the working overtime, night hours, unusual hours, right to paid annual leaves. Similarly, protection for discrimination and harassment at work, and right to various social protection benefits under EOBI and ESSI. These are old age pension, employment injury benefits, sickness benefits, etc. Similarly, right to occupational safety and health, and right to freedom of association and collective bargaining, and access to work councils, etc. In the last, I am very much sure that this launch of the Fairwork Pakistan ratings for the year 2023 for platform work would definitely pave the initial footings for a draft legislation in the ICT for platform workers as a first step. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we would be honored if Dr. Mahmood Khalid could share his valuable words and insight with us. Dr. Khalid is working as a senior research economist, Macro Policy Lab, PIDE. Previously, he was the project director, Center of Excellence, CPAC, and head fiscal policy section at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Mr. Khalid has been the head of Health Economics Department at the same institute. Please, sir, you may start.
So what I have done is that since GharPar has taught all the what could I say, the rights versus the wrongs, I've taken a different approach where I've tried to fit in that this is something which is an emerging area, so we cannot leave it behind and we have to live with it. The only thing is that we have to kind of integrate with it, and I'm sure that this is something which is easier as compared to the other sectors from a labor perspective, because this is something which pertains to technology, and as he has also mentioned that this is something which helps actually the transactions it facilitates. So what I've done is that I have basically kind of just elaborated that why is it important to embrace this. So we cannot simply say that this is all bad, but it needs to improve definitely. Then I've talked about a kind of a framework in which it is integrating with the overall welfare policy making from a state's perspective. And lastly, what's missing in the overall policy arena from the macro perspective, as GharPar has talked about more on the legislative part. So what exactly is the platform economy? That it's a kind of a disruptive economic model. It has changed the way how the actual transactions used to happen. And this has actually helped because this is something which was out of the box. What it has led is that it has disrupted the natural order of both businesses and lives. It has created opportunities. So we should basically congratulate those who have worked for it, invented it, and kind of brainchild it. World over, it's not just related to the services part, it has many other interfaces which has been mentioned in the report as well. They have focused on ways and means through which both the consumers as well as the service providers could be integrated, such as Netflix, Facebook, Amazon, Uber, Airbnb. Even the cryptocurrency is one way of the platform economy where both the producers and the users are integrated. Even YouTube is providing services where the content is provided and the users are benefiting, whereas the creators are being paid. So this is something which is a fact and we have to live with it. So the business as usual and the life as usual has now been changed and has become an obsolete word in the overall economic transactions. But the problem is that the state or the government is not also adapting to these requirements which are ever changing. They have simply left it to the market to basically look over that. So what has happened over time is that the aggregators and processes such as the embedded financing, including mobile wallets and cross-border payments, etc., have actually increased. And this is something which is really fascinating because it helps both the consumers as well as the service providers to benefit from. But what is the missing element in all this debate is the state's capacity to regulate. I'll just give you a quick example. Few months back there were schemes related to the financing options which were available, easier to access, and there was almost no documentation, and the payment schedules were also easy, but the rate of interest for the markup was very high. The government didn't intervene at that time, but since it started to put a lot of burden on the people which have actually used those digital financing apps, now they have started to kind of educate the people that please don't become scum to these kinds of options which are available. So in a sense, this is the state's response which is not there, otherwise the technology itself is not the bad thing. And it helps in the sense that it increases the availability of information, and it helps customization starting from finance and going up to rights. It was not there before. And in addition, it continues to create innovation. This is a kind of an ever increasing or evolving thing, and we have to really adapt to it. We cannot simply take away. Especially the advent of the artificial intelligence, now the business models have totally changed. So we cannot simply say that we should stop it, rather we have to live with it. So these are kind of digital matchmakers which are basically providing their services in the overall economic arena. In Pakistan, as Iftikhar rightly mentioned, Foodpanda, GharPar, Uber, Bykea, Careem, OLX, we all even take the Zameen.com, and there are sort of services as well because they're trying to customize the transactions. But from the regulator's perspective, they're not bothered about actually how the transactions are happening, whereas ideally they should think about all the concerns, including the privacy, security, ethics related to the labor laws and others as well. So overall, why is it important to understand this? Because the overall development framework which we use is basically the SDGs framework. And unfortunately, that is basically missing from all that framework which is in practice, both in Pakistan and outside. So what has happened is that instead of this capitalism leading to more economic growth and improvement in the welfare, unfortunately it is turning towards a kind of a platform capitalism, whereas this innovation was sort of thought of to provide the knowledge and social economy, and it should have worked on the principles of the platform corporatism rather than converting into a kind of a platform capitalism, where just Iftikhar ne Sara mentioned kiya, actually the people are becoming indebted. And I would not just talk about the indebtedness in terms of the capital which they are investing, it's also their health, their family lives, and so many other things which they are actually sacrificing, which converts into the profits for these platform service providers. So overall, the information and communication technologies basically was the missing element in the overall SDGs framework. So practically that is not something which is embedded in it. For the SDGs, basically the data and governance dimensions were totally not included in the overall framework. So overall, if you look at the platform economy, these could be basically categorized in these 6 parts, where we have the social responsibility, the impact, data, technology, the governance, and the economic model in terms of that. And they actually corresponds to many of the SDGs which basically act like a framework. Simply take the first SDGs which talks about the poverty or the access and the other things. That is something which actually the platform economy was supposed to help. But unfortunately, if you look at the technology and data part, which should have been reflected in the overall SDGs framework, was missing from all that welfare planning mechanism. And that is why it is actually not helping, rather it is kind of putting a drag in the overall welfare. So if you look at the situation of Pakistan, most of the SDGs indicators have actually not improved, rather they have either remained static or even fallen in certain cases. And the reason is that they are actually missing the economic activities which are happening on ground, and they are missing a large chunk, as Iftikhar has already mentioned, that the platform economy, maybe it's because of more undocumentation, but it absorbs the unskilled workers and the youth essentially, which is turning into the market for work. And that is something which really is a worrisome thing. And why is it happening? Because the government itself is not recognizing it. Even if you go today on the website of the Ministry of Commerce, they are just targeting the ICT-based commerce as e-commerce, and they have simply forgotten that the platform economy is something different from simply putting your ads on the website. It's kind of a customization of transaction and interaction between the buyers and sellers, which essentially is not part of the e-commerce. So if the Ministry of Commerce cannot recognize it as a sector of the economy which needs to be improved, therefore the legislation and all other regulatory requirements which needs to be embedded in that is missing from the sector. And this is something which essentially is part of our weak governance. So for example, if you look at the indicators like the regulatory index developed by World Bank, our performance has actually been worsening since 2018, and we have actually, if you look at 0 as a base, we have actually gone down, and it has gone down to -0.72 for the last reporting period. The World Bank's ease of doing business has been stopped, but in that also, out of 190 countries, we were always in the lower part of the countries where our actual cost of doing business was not reduced, whereas the platform economy and other sorts of options were actually supposed to help. And the same is in the context of the e-government knowledge base for the government. So if you look at the Pakistan score, it's nowhere near any country. So the problem actually lies with the government's capacity to understand that this is something which is real, which is happening, and they have to increase their capacity, how they can actually take advantage of this rather than staying back. And I believe as a researcher that the reason why the government is holding back primarily is that this is something which is happening in the market and it is providing employment. So they simply say that let's leave it for its growth, whether it converts into a monster where actually it is an extractive capitalism, or it goes to actually waste, as Iftikhar has mentioned, that many of the foreign investors have actually gone back, and the prime reason is that there are market practices which are not fair, and that is why they are not willing to do business. So I again congratulate Iftikhar for presenting a very noble report, and I am really sure that the outcomes of this report would go to the echelons of policy makers so that some improvement could be made. Thank you very much.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं बहुत मशकूर हूँ इफ्तिखार भाई का कि उन्होंने आज हमको इस प्रोग्राम में दावत दी, और मेरे लिए आज ये बड़ी अच्छा प्रोग्राम और मेरे लिए मालूमाती प्रोग्राम कि शायद हमारी इस तरफ तवज्जो भी नहीं थी कि डिजिटल इकोनॉमी क्या है, कैसी है, और कितने शोबे हैं जो इस इकोनॉमी में कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं। हम अरसे दराज से सिर्फ सनअती और तिजारती और होम बेस और डोमेस्टिक वर्कर्स के लिए काम करते रहे हैं, एग्रीकल्चर वर्कर्स के लिए या फार्मल इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर में काम करते रहे, और यही समझते रहे कि शायद यही वर्कर हैं। प्लेटफॉर्म वर्कर के लिए गुज़श्ता 1 साल से 1.5 साल से हम काम कर रहे थे, लेकिन जितनी डिटेल में इफ्तिखार भाई ने अपनी रिसर्च रिपोर्ट पेश की है, इसके लिए हम उसके बहुत मशकूर हैं और उनको खराज तहसीन पेश करते हैं कि आज हमारे लिए इतना मालूमाती प्रोग्राम है कि मैं पहली दफ़ा इस प्रोग्राम में शरीक हुआ हूँ, और मैं समझता हूँ कि मेरी नॉलेज में इतना इजाफा हुआ है कि आज जाके जब हम अपने साथियों के साथ बैठेंगे, अपनी तंजीम में बैठेंगे, या ILO के साथ हम अक्सर मीटिंग्स होती हैं, बहुत सारे प्रोग्रामों के हवाले से बात करते हैं, आगाही प्रोग्रामों के बारे में बात करते हैं, तो हमें इतनी डिटेल में मालूमात नहीं थी, खासकर डिजिटल वर्कर्स के लिए या प्लेटफॉर्म वर्कर्स के लिए। तो ये हमारे लिए बड़ा एक अच्छा इक़दाम है कि हमें बुलाया गया। यकीनन ये एक सिर्फ डिजिटल वर्कर्स या हमारे होम बेस या डोमेस्टिक वर्कर्स के लिए नहीं, बल्कि ये हर एक के लिए मिनिमम वेज का बड़ा मसला है, औकात कार का बड़ा मसला है, सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट का बड़ा मसला है, उनके राइट ऑफ एसोसिएशन और राइट ऑफ कलेक्टिव बार्गेनिंग का बड़ा मसला है। मैं कुछ अर्से तक ये सोचता था कि ان ورکرز کے جو اوبر میں ہیں، کریم میں ہیں، فوڈ پانڈا میں ہیں، ان کی ہم کس طرح یونین بنا سکتے ہیں، ہم ان کے امپلائر کو کس طرح ڈیفائن کر سکتے ہیں. تو آج افتخار بھائی نے جس طرح اپنی ریسرچ رپورٹ میں کلیئر کیا ہے، تو ان کے تو بہت بڑے بڑے امپلائر ہیں اور اس کے تو بے تحاشا ورکر ہیں. تو اس کے لیے بہت آسان ہو گیا کہ اگر ہم ان کی یونین بنانا چاہیں تو ان کی یونین بن سکتی ہے، کلیکٹیو بارگیننگ ہو سکتی ہے اور ان کے حقوق کے لیے بہت تفصیل میں بات چیت ہو سکتی ہے. اور جس طرح افتخار بھائی نے کہا کہ جو پلیٹ فارم ورکرز ہیں ان کے بارے میں میرے خیال میں پاکستان میں اس حد تک ان کے مسائل کو اجاگر نہیں کیا گیا یا اس طرح پیش نہیں کیا گیا ہے. تو ان کو اجاگر کرنے کی بہت ضرورت ہے، ان کے لیے آگاہی کی دینے کی بہت ضرورت ہے. اور میں سمجھتا ہوں جو اس پلیٹ فارم ورکرز خود جو کام کریں ان کو بھی اپنے حقوق اور ان کے مسائل کا اس حد تک اعادہ نہیں، ان کو معلومات نہیں جتنی افتخار بھائی نے اپنی رپورٹ میں پیش کی ہے. تو ایک دفعہ پھر میں بہت بہت مشکور ہوں اور افتخار بھائی کا کہ انہوں نے ہم کو موقع دیا. ہم اتفاق سے اسلام آباد میں آئے ہوئے تھے اور رات ہی ان کا ٹیلی فون آیا. ہم دن بھر بزی تھے اور ہمیں نہیں پتا تھا کہ کس ٹائپ کا پروگرام ہے اور وہاں جا کے کیا کرنا ہے، کیا بولنا ہے. لیکن جتنی انہوں نے آگاہی دی ہے میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ یہ بہت ہے کہ اگر ہم اس کے اوپر ورکنگ کریں تو ہمارے لیے ایک بڑی اچھی مثال اور ایک آگے لے چلنے کے لیے بہت بڑا پلیٹ فارم ہے. تو میں CLR کا اور افتخار بھائی کے دیگر دوستوں کا جنہوں نے اس میں حصہ لیا بہت بہت مشکور ہوں اور پاکستان ورکرز فیڈریشن سے طرف سے ان کا ایک دفعہ شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں. تھینک یو، بہت بہت شکریہ.
میرا اس پہ ایک ایڈوائس ہوگی. آپ نے بڑا اچھا کیا یہ پوائنٹ ریز کیا. یہ میں جب اپنی بات کرنا چاہ رہا تھا اس وقت میں سامنے رکھنا چاہ رہا تھا. بنیادی طور پر ILO میں اس موضوع پہ بات کافی پرانی ہو گئی ہے. یہ 2015-16 میں مجھے یاد ہے کہ ہمیں ہیڈ کوارٹر سے ایک میسج آیا تھا کہ فارمیلٹی میں گگ ورکرز کی جو سچویشن ہے اس میں پاکستان کو کچھ کام ہوا. عام طور پر وہ ایک میٹرک سا بھیجتے ہیں. تو پہلی دفعہ میں نے جب اس کو پڑھا تو مجھے یہ سمجھ نہیں آئی کہ ہم کس موضوع پہ بات کر رہے ہیں. کیونکہ جب بھی ہم انفارمیلٹی کی بات کرتے ہیں ہم ایگریکلچر سیکٹر پہ آتے ہیں، ہم ڈومیسٹک ورکرز کو دیکھتے ہیں، ہوم بیسڈ ورکرز کو دیکھتے ہیں. ہم ان لوگوں کو دیکھتے ہیں جو کسی وجہ سے لیجسلیٹو پرویو سے باہر ہے. تو 2016-17 سے آن دا پلیٹ فارم آف ILO یہ مختلف طرح کی ریسرچز چل رہی ہیں. مثلاً ایک ریسرچ ہے جس کا حوالہ ہماری رپورٹ میں جو پچھلے سال آئی اس میں تقریباً 4.3 ٹریلین USD کی تھی. یہ 2015 کی بات اور کوئی لگ بھگ میں وہ نوٹ کر رہا تھا اس ریسرچ رپورٹ سے، وہ میں نے دیکھی تھی. لگ بھگ 82 پلیٹ فارم صرف ایشیا میں تھے اور کوئی 64 امریکہ میں. ٹوٹل کوئی 176 پلیٹ فارمس تھے. آج پاکستان میں شاید 100 کے قریب پلیٹ فارم ہے. تو آپ ایکسپینشن دیکھیں اس اور 2018 میں 7.1 ٹریلین. اب اس میں بہت سی چیزیں تو ڈاکیومنٹ ہی نہیں ہو رہی اور ہم جو ہمارے سامنے ہمیں وہ نظر آ رہے ہیں. کریم ہمارے سامنے ہے، اوبر ہر کوئی یوز کرتا ہے. جو ہمارے سامنے نہیں ہے وہ ہمیں نظر نہیں آ رہے، وہ بھی ہیں. تو وہ 3 لیئرز ہیں، شاید اس کی بھی بات کرنے کی کہیں نہ کہیں ہمیں ضرورت ہے نا. وہ جو ایک ہم کہتے ہیں کور لائن، ایک ہم کہتے ہیں جو انٹیگریشن ورکرز ہیں اور ایکسچینج لائن کے جو ہیں، یہ تینوں لائن. اب یہ ٹیکنیکل چیزیں ہیں. میں تو یہ سمجھتا ہوں کہ PTCC FPCC ضرور جایا جائے، مگر ہمیں یہاں اس ملک میں بھی اس کے اوپر اس طرح کے ڈائلاگس کی، سوشل ڈائلاگس کی ضرورت ہے بٹوین ورکرز، امپلائرز اور باقی باڈیز. کیونکہ یہ جو ٹرمز ہیں یہ انپیک تو ہونا شروع ہوں، ادروائز ہم ورکنگ کنڈیشن پہ ڈیفینیٹلی کام کرنے کی ضرورت ہے. اور وہ ریزن بھی یہ ہے جس کا آپ نے حوالہ دیا. اینڈ آئی ایم ریئلی تھینکفل ٹو یو اینڈ یور آرگنائزیشن کہ آپ اس کے اوپر یہ ریسرچ کر رہے ہیں. بٹ جو میجر پوائنٹ ہے جو مجھے سمجھ آتا ہے، لیجسلیٹو کوریج میں بہت سی کیٹیگریز آف ورکرز نہیں ہیں. تو اگر آپ اسے پرائورٹائز کرنا چاہیں گے تو اس میں جینڈر کا ایسپیکٹ بہت اہم ہے، اس کو دیکھنے کی ضرورت ہے. تو میں یہ سمجھتا ہوں And I think I was also thinking within my own organization how to support this whole discourse कि क्या हम provincial सतह पे interactions और dialogues करवाएं इस पे specifically academia में. And this is another thing, sir. I really want to acknowledge इफ्तिखार साहब efforts कि वो academia को link कर रहे हैं. तो I think हम थोड़ा सा अगर सोचें कि हम लाहौर, कराची और मुल्तान और भावलपुर और पेशावर और कोयटा में कर सकते हैं इस तरह के डायलॉग्स. मैं इंटरेस्टेड हूँगा कि मैं उसको सपोर्ट कर सकूँ. I mean, we will look for resources. इतने नहीं चाहिए. यहाँ पे क्या हमें चाहिए, कब चाय पिलानी होती है ना, वो तो कोई भी होस्ट हमें मिल जाएगा. मगर जो इफ्तिखार, जो मुझे बहुत अहम बात यहाँ नजर आ रही है ना, एंड आई एम वरीड अबाउट इट, वो ये है कि हम प्लेटफॉर्म इकोनॉमी में जो गिग इकोनॉमी के जो प्लेयर्स हैं वो मिसिंग हैं. they are really missing from the discourse. So how to bring them on board? That is where I think जो अगर आप FTCC, PTCC पे लॉ के लिए रखेंगे ना, तो मे बी ICT की सतह पे आपको थोड़ी सी आसानी हो, मे बी पंजाब और सिंध में भी आसानी हो. कुछ जगहों पे बहुत टाइम लग जाएगा बिकॉज वो लॉ डिपार्टमेंट में जाने हैं, लॉ डिपार्टमेंट ने फिर उन स्टेक होल्डर से डिस्कस करना है. तो अगर हमने बैक ऑफ द माइंड वो वाला काम ना किया कि हम उनको टेबल पे लेके आए, तो लॉ तो बन जाएंगे, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन मैकेनिज्म में फिर रूल्स ऑफ बिजनेस बनने में एजेस लगेंगी. लेट बी. एंड मेरी जो आखिरी इनपुट है डेफिनेटली वो है कि 113वें सेशन में जिसका आप हवाला दे रहे हैं, हमारे पाकिस्तान में काफी रिसर्च, आपकी इस रिसर्च समेत कंट्रीब्यूट किया है इस जो हमारी ILC हुई है उसमें भी. और यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट. मुझे नहीं लगता 2026 तक ये जाएगा, ये 2025 में आ जाएगा. अब क्या आएगा ये तो ऑफिस ने डिसाइड नहीं करना, ये तो मेंबर्स ने डिसाइड करना है. और आपके 2 गवर्निंग बॉडी मेंबरशिप हैं यहाँ से, दोनों के पास इतनी इंफॉर्मेशन गई है, दैट आई नो. ब्रदर जहूर के पास भी और हमारे जो सेक्रेटरी साहब हैं उन्होंने भी इसके ऊपर इंटरनल डायलॉग किया. तो आपका ये लॉ जो है वो एज अ प्रोएक्टिव मेजर उनको जरूर दे, ताकि जब वो वहां जाएं तो वो कहें जी देखें हमारे लोग ये डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. तो दैट इज अ गुड की टू शोकेस दैट व्हाट पाकिस्तान इज कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू. एंड आल्सो मेरा ख्याल है साउथ एक्सचेंज की जरूरत है. हमारे यहाँ से क्या कोई एक्सचेंज हो सकता है थाईलैंड के साथ, कंबोडिया के साथ, हिंदुस्तान के साथ? हिंदुस्तान में बहुत ज्यादा है प्लेटफॉर्म. और लास्ट पॉइंट है वो ये है कि हम प्लेटफॉर्म इकोनॉमी वर्कर्स में उन वर्कर्स को ना भूल जाए. मैंने वो 3 लाइंस कही हैं. हमारे यहाँ इस तरह के वर्कर्स हैं और हजारों की तादाद में हैं जो अमेरिका में, यूके में सिक्योरिटी के फराइज यहाँ से अंजाम दे रहे हैं. कैमरे वहां लगे हुए हैं, 2 लोग वहां बैठे हुए हैं, 400 लोग यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं. इन 400 लोगों का काम उन इदारों में सिक्योरिटी को देखना है. वहां सिर्फ 2 लोग हैं क्योंकि वहां पे पर आवर $12, $15, $20 सैलरी है. मे भी इन लोगों को $25 दे रहे हो. यहाँ पे पर डे में उनको $2 मिलने हैं या $4 मिलने हैं. हाउ टू ऑल्सो इंटीग्रेट देम. हम करीम उबर को तो बड़ी इजीली ले लेंगे, मगर इस तरह के जो वर्कर्स हैं, गिग इकोनॉमी की मैं बात कर रहा हूं, तो प्लेटफॉर्म को आप गिग से कैसे अलग करेंगे? मुझे ये इस सवाल का भी जवाब मुझे नजर नहीं आता. मैं ये बात कर रहा हूँ टेक्निकल एस्पेक्ट की तरफ से. तो मुझे ये लगता है कि एकेडमिक रिसर्चेस और साथ साथ में हमें लेके आना पड़ेगा जो हमारे स्पेशलिस्ट हैं जिन्होंने इसके ऊपर काम किया है, उनको हम कैसे एंगेज करें. एंड आई एम नॉट ओनली रेफरिंग टू ILO स्पेशलिस्ट. मैं चाहूंगा कि हम उन लोगों को पाकिस्तान बुला पाए जिनका प्लेटफॉर्म इकोनॉमी के अराउंड काम है. देन इफ यू कैन facilitate some of those people to come to Pakistan and also talk to our academia, talk to our researchers, talk to our experts in the world of work. I think वो भी बड़ा contribution देगा. Attitudinal change यहाँ से आएगा जब आप जैसे हमारे जैसे इस कमरे में बैठे हुए जो लोग हैं ना, ये multiply by 200 हो और ये हर province में बैठे हो. या ना कि हमें ये सुनने को मिले, मैंने सुना है, मेरी ये कंप्लेन नहीं है, ये मैंने सुना है कि आपसे डोमेस्टिक वर्कर्स तो हैंडल नहीं होते, आपसे होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स तो हैंडल नहीं होते. आज तक आप कॉटन सप्लाई चेन में तो लॉज को इंप्लीमेंट करा नहीं सके, तो क्या आप ट्रिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर की इंडस्ट्री किसी और मुल्क में लेके जाना चाहते हैं? हाउ टू रिस्पॉन्ड टू दिस क्वेश्चन? फ्रॉम ILO वी आर रिस्पॉन्डिंग, बट आई थिंक हमारे जो सोशल पार्टनर्स हैं ان کو بھی اس کوشچن کو رسپونڈ کرنا ہے. تھینک یو.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I am very sorry I could have been part of this launching of the report, which is on the platform workers, done by Center for Labour Research and Fair Foundation. But unfortunately, I am not in Pakistan. I am currently in Phuket, Thailand, for another trade union Asian meeting. So from here, I am very much thankful for Center for Labour Research and Fair Foundation to work on platform workers and to prepare and launch a report which highlights the platform workers, its plight, its different aspect of working environment, as well as for a proposal of a draft bill. That is very important to work with the legislator to pass on so that platform workers should cover a legislative perspective of the situation, in which not only the platform workers can have fair wages, but also decent living and working condition, together with the right to form trade union and to collectively bargain. So this is very important because platform workers with the digital economy constitute a large portion of the workers, and moreover they are increasing day by day in terms of their numbers. And I do fervently hope that with this, as well as for attaining their social protection rights, I think Center for Labour Research and Fair Foundation, we will work together as trade union movement, so that plight of platform workers, together with Center for Labour and Research, we will work better way so that their plight are addressed very properly and to come for solution as well. Thanks again for Center for Labour Research for bringing this a comprehensive report on launching it for a draft bill as well. Thank you very much.
وہ دن ب دن کم ہو رہے ہیں اور یہ بہت ہی ہمارے لیے الارمنگ سچویشن ہے. میں کیونکہ ورکر کے اینک سے آپ سے بات کرنا چاہ رہی ہوں، اسپیشلی فیمیل ورکرز کے حوالے سے. تو یہ جتنی بھی میں اس کے علاوہ پاکستان ورکرز فیڈریشنز کے علاوہ ان کی ہمت افزائی اور ریکمنڈیشنز پہ اسلام آباد میں ویمن ورکر الائنس کام کر رہا ہے، جس میں اسلام آباد چیپٹر کو دیکھتی ہوں اور اس کو چیئر کر رہی ہوں یہاں کے گروپ کو. تو ہم نے بہت ساری ایسی جو انفارمل سیکٹر سے خواتین کے ساتھ کام کیا، ان کو ان سے معلومات لینے کے لیے، جس میں ٹرانسپورٹ کمپنیز میں کام کرنے والی خواتین مالز کے اوپر کام کرتی ہیں، جو فرینچائزیز میں بیٹھی ہوئی ہیں، جو سروسز دے رہی ہیں. اور اس میں کچھ میں آپ کو بتاؤں کہ ہمارے ساتھ اوبر اور کریم کی جو کیپٹنس تھی وہ بھی ہمارے ساتھ تھیں اور اپنے ایشوز کے ساتھ. اس کے علاوہ ہوٹلس کی مینجمنٹ میں یا ورکرز میں جو خواتین کام کرتی ہیں، تو اس میں جو چند ایک چیزیں شامل ہیں کہ بائکیا بھی ایک خاتون اتنی مجبور ہے، وہ کہتی ہے میرے پاس موٹر سائیکل ہے، میں بائکیا پہ کام کرنا چاہتی ہوں، لیکن اس کے آرس اور اس میں جو ہمارا ماحول ہے ارد گرد کا وہ ہمیں پریشان کر رہا ہے. میں رات کو بھی کام کرنے کے تیار ہوں، میرے بچے بھوکے نہ مرے. اور جو کریم اور اوبر پہ کیپٹنس تھیں تو ان کے کچھ کے تو ایکسپیرینسز بہت اچھے تھے، اور کچھ جہاں پہ ہمارا سب سے بڑا جو ایشو آتا ہے وہ سیکیورٹی کا آتا ہے. اور اس میں بدقسمتی گورنمنٹ کے لوگ بیٹھے ہیں کہ یہ جو پولیس کی طرف سے ہے ان کو پراپر جسے کہتے ہیں نا تھریٹ کرنا، اس طرح سیکشل ہراسمنٹ کے کیسز ہیں. وہ تو ہمارا پتہ نہیں شاید قومی مشغلہ بن گیا ہے، اتنی بری بات ہے یہ. تو یہ میں خواتین کے اس حوالے سے بات کر رہی ہوں کہ کریم اوبر کے علاوہ فوڈ پینڈا میں بھی ہمیں خواتین نظر آئیں جو بیک پہ کوکنگ کر رہی ہیں اور جو اور سروسز بھی. اس کے علاوہ فوڈ پینڈا پہ کچھ ایسے بھی جگہ ہیں جیسے گھر کا کھانا، اور یہ وہاں پہ ٹوٹلی خواتین کام کر رہی ہیں. پیکنگ میں کسی جگہ پہ ہمیں خواتین نظر آئیں. ہمیں آرڈرز لینے میں خواتین جو ہیں وہ بہت سی جگہوں پہ ملی ہیں. تو یہ ایک ایسا پلیٹ فارم ہے جس سے اب ہم دامن نہیں چھڑا سکتے اس کو اگنور نہیں کر سکتے، بلکہ ہماری دنیا فارمل سے انفارمل کی طرف جا رہی ہے، اور ہم نے ان لوگوں کو ہم قوانین بنا بھی لیں گے. میرے سے زیادہ تو میرے اساتذہ یہاں بیٹھے ہیں جن کی زندگیاں گزر گئی لیبر لا کی امپلیمنٹیشن کے لیے، اور بھٹیوں میں لوگ جل گئے، ان کی نسلیں ختم ہو گئی، لیکن ہم ان کو انصاف نہیں دلا سکے. ہمارے دوست ایسے جو ہمارے اساتذہ ہیں جو فوت ہو گئے، وہ فیکٹریوں سے نکالے گئے، ہم ان کے جو واجبات ہے وہ نہیں لے سکے ہیں. تو ان کو ہم کیسے آپ کہہ سکتے ہیں کہ ہم کسی لیبر لا کے انڈر لے آئیں، ورکرز کی ڈیفینیشنز میں لے آئیں گے، ایک آئیڈیل سچویشن دیں. ہاں ہماری ایفرٹس ہو سکتی ہیں کہ بھئی ہمارے ارد گرد کا ماحول، تو دیکھیں پھر دوبارہ ہم گورنمنٹ کی طرف اس لیے جاتے ہیں کہ ان کے پاس اختیارات سارے ہیں، وہ امپلیمنٹ ہر چیز کو کروا سکتے ہیں. سیکشل ہراسمنٹ کا بل ہے، ورک پلیس پہ بھی ہے، وہ ہر جگہ پہ ہے. اس کی امپلیمنٹیشن کون یقینی بنا سکتی ہے؟ گورنمنٹ بنا سکتی ہے، تھرو پولیس بنا سکتی ہے کے ذریعے اس طرح. اس کے علاوہ دیکھیں شکایات ان کی ہو سکتی ہے نا کہ منیمم، یہ آپ نے لکھا نا یہاں پہ کہ ان کا معاوضہ، حالات کار، معاہدے، انتظامات اور نمائندگی، اس کو یقینی ہم گورنمنٹ کی طرف سے بنوا سکتے ہیں. ہاں ILO جیسے انہوں نے شاہ صاحب نے بات کی کہ ہم ان کو کیسے اویئرنیس دے سکتے ہیں اور اس کو ہائی لیول پہ کیسے بات کر سکتے ہیں. ورکرز فیڈریشن نے آج تک جو کیا، نرسنگ سے ہم نے اسٹارٹ لیا، ہم نے پرائیویٹ ٹیچر سے اسٹارٹ کیا، ان کو اویئرنیس دی. ہم نے پورے پروجیکٹس کیے، میڈیا پہ کیا ہے کہ میڈیا والوں کو کہا کہ آپ بھی ورکرز کی ڈیفینیشنز میں آتے ہیں، ٹیچرز ورکرز کی ڈیفینیشنز میں آتی ہیں، اسینشل سروسز میں کسی کو ڈال دیا، کسی کو کس طرح ہم اویئرنیس دے سکتے ہیں، ان کو فیسیلیٹیٹ کر سکتے ہیں، ان کے لیے بھاگ دوڑ کر سکتے ہیں، ایجوکیشن کر سکتے ہیں، ریلیز نکال کر آواز اٹھا سکتے ہیں. جو ہمیں پلیٹ فارمز ملتے ہیں وہاں پہ ہم بول سکتے ہیں، فورسفلی بول سکتے ہیں، ریکویسٹ کر سکتے ہیں. جو بھی ہمارے پاس طریقہ کار ہے ورکرز کے پلیٹ فارم سے، وہ PWF نے کیا، کرتی ہے اور کرتا رہیں گے ہم لوگ سارے. لیکن یہاں پہ ضرورت اس عمل کی ہے کہ یہ جو ٹرائیپرٹائٹ ہے ہمارا، کہ گورنمنٹ ہے اور تاجر مالکان ہیں اور ورکرز ہیں، جب تک ان کی بانڈنگ کوئی نہیں ہوگی. اب جیسے سید صاحب نے کہا کہ آپ اس کو کیسے لے کر آئیں گے، اب اس کمپنی کے اس اینڈ تک ہم بات کو کیسے لے کے جائیں گے. یہ جو راستے ہیں ان کو تھوڑا سا مضبوط کرنا ہوگا، اور اس بات کو کبھی اگنور مت کیجیے گا کہ اس میں خواتین ورکرز کی تعداد کافی ہے، بڑھتی جا رہی ہے، اور ان کے پھر مخصوص پھر کچھ مسائل بھی ہو جاتے ہیں. تو وہ اس چیز کو آپ اگنور نہیں کر سکتے، بجائے اس کے کہ ہم اس کو اگنور کریں، ہم اس کو آگے لے کے جائیں. ہر سطح پہ جب بات کریں گے، انیشنلی بات ہوگی، تو میرا خیال ہے کہ جب اینڈ پہ کوئی چیز چلی جاتی ہے تو وہ شروع سے ذہن میں ہوتی ہے، ورنہ پھر بعد میں ڈالنا پڑتا ہے کہ بھئی یہ خواتین بھی تو اس میں تھی، تو یہ بات ہوگی، تو وہ بات. تھینک یو.
For me, it's a very informative session. It was very informative, اور افتخار when I've been working together in some department. اور میں ان کا ایک پوسٹ انویٹیشن میں ریگن سے صبح کے ٹائم کے لیے میں آ جاؤں، انہوں نے ایک پوسٹ کیا تھا، تو دین آئی wanted کہ I should join it, and I'm really happy کہ it's a very useful and very much informative for me. اور میں لیبر منسٹری میں کام کیا کچھ ایسا میں نے، but I've not worked in this direction. That was a different expression type of work. So R is very mashallah hard working, اور مجھے لگا ہے کہ I would like کہ آپ مجھے انوائٹ کرتے رہیں، میں اس کو دیکھوں گا، اور انشاءاللہ in future I would contribute something, and I would come up with some suggestions.
Thank you, Iftikhar. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to start with the provisions from Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, which is the main instrument for legal as well as social rights of the citizen. As an Islamic nation, the authors of the Constitution incorporated the principle of Islam and Sharia, particularly in the shape of Qur'an al-Maqasid, mandating that all laws should conform to the injunction of Islam derived from Holy Quran and Sunnah. There are two high-powered institutions to check the same, that is the Council of Islamic Cardiology and Federal Sharia Court. The crystal example of this is most renowned Dakshan Masih case decided by Honorable Supreme Court of Pakistan in the matter of brick-kiln workers. The Boundary Labour System Abolition Act 1992 was enacted in line with the decision of Supreme Court. The legislation outlawed peshki payment. This act was railed in the Federal Sharia Code by the Brooklyn owners on the pretext that it is against the Islamic principle, but the Honorable Court, understanding the exploitation faced by the workers and safeguarding their rights, rendered a crucial ruling in favor of Brooklyn workers grounded in the Islamic teachings. Traditionally, we have sector-specific laws. As I have already mentioned, the law with respect to the bricklayer workers and more as law for newspaper employees, mine workers, factory workers, shop and establishment workers, seamen, dock workers, road transport workers, and recently the promises have also promulgated laws for home-based workers and domestic workers. However, till date, the platform workers are deprived of their fundamental rights enshrined in our religious teachings as well as international labor standards, particularly the core labor standards of ILO. It is heartening to note that Center for Labor Research has drafted a law for workers of this new segment of economic activity who are being badly suffered with respect to fundamental rights in terms of working time, less wages, social safety, occupational safety, and so on. The ILO core labor standards ratified by Pakistan includes right of association and collective bargaining, elimination of child labor, eradication of bonded labor, and non-discrimination. I have gone through the draft law titled Islamabad Capital Territory Platform Workers Protection Act 2023. This law is conformity with the injunction of Islam with regard to various workers' rights, including but not limited to the provisions of employment contracts, rights of equal treatment, right to social security, right to unionizations, working hours, holidays, fair wages, occupational safety and health, privacy and of personal data, etc. I would like to specifically highlight two wonderful forums suggested by the law, that is Platform Workers Protection Council and Dispute Resolution Committee. The council is a tripartite forum which is particularly with respect to identification of mapping of platform workers, registration of digital platform, record of registered platform workers for and provisions of information to the platform workers. In addition, the council would coordinate with Social Security Institution and EOBI for registration of platform workers with these institutions. It would also coordinate with minimum wage board for fixation of minimum wage for these workers. In this way, this council would act as pivot for administration of this law. The second forum, Dispute Resolution Committee, is provided to hear and decide all claims, complaints, and disputes arising out of and in connection with enforcement of the Act. This forum will save the money as well as time to be spent in the courts of law and provide speedy justice to complainant. To have the fair justice and appellate forum is also provided in the law. I am confident that if the bill is legislated, the platform workers would have easier access to the labor market and employment opportunities. These workers who are presently classified as independent contractors to deprive their rights due to non-existence of law would be able to get at least minimum labor rights as are available to other workers in ICT. This law will ensure to determination of their employment status as workers, provide for their guaranteed minimum wage, ensure their right of association and collective bargaining and elimination of all form of exploitation with respect to their employment rights. Mr. Hasa, I would be most happy if, to start with, these workers are covered under Social Security and UBI law. I congratulate the CLR team for this wonderful effort and pray that their voice may lead to the high-ups who have the power to legislate for this most neglected class of work. Thanks.